Hello everyone, welcome back to Story Time. We are currently reading Nan and Sidekick Grandad by Annaliese Matheron, and Annaliese is a local author and she very kindly said that we can read her book for story time. It's getting very exciting. I need to know what's going on at Mrs. Gillespie's house. What is happening? So get yourselves comfortable, sit down and let's read chapter 9, The Trail Runs Hot. Kieran's plan worked like a dream. Maybe he wasn't as big a plonker as Ben had thought. Nan was so overjoyed to see the boys getting on that she agreed to let them take the bike for a ride. So Ben rode the bike up and down Honeypot Grove while Kieran ran alongside it. On each pass they looked at Mrs. Gillespie's house. All the windows were shut. It was as quiet as ever. They tried to find the bloody trail, but it was gone. "What now?" Kieran asked. "Look around for clues, I guess," Ben replied. After a few minutes, the boys moved to one side to let Mr. Gregson pull up in his red sports car. Mr. Gregson waved to the boys to say hello. Ben knew immediately that he had just picked up the trail. Right there, on Mr. Gregson's hand, were a series of red-coloured splodges. Ben gestured to Kieran. "It's probably just car polish," he said. "No, it's not. It's dye from the berries in Mrs. Gillespie's bush, and I bet he has a cut somewhere too." "OK, say it was Mr. Gregson who broke in last night. What should we do? Tell old Colonel Brown so that he can come and hit him with his walking stick?" "Don't be silly. We need to get some evidence and show the police." "And how do you suppose to do that, bat pants?" Ben took Kieran's mobile phone from his pocket and waved it back and forth. "Oi, that's mine. I've been looking for that. Give it back," Kieran said. Ben quickly put it back in his pocket. "You can have it back when I've finished with it, but first you have to help me." "What are you going to do with it?" Kieran asked. "Take photos, you know. Proof," Ben replied. "Take photos of what? Mr. Gregson's black ninja costume hanging on the line?" Kieran laughed. "It was just an idea." Kieran felt ashamed. "It's a good idea. Like you said, we need evidence. Let's do it." So the boys made their way across the road and rang the doorbell. Mr. Gregson quickly answered. "Oh, hello, Mr. Gregson. I'm sorry to bother you, but I was wondering if you wouldn't mind letting me look at your car," Kieran asked. "For sure, no problem. Colin, is it?" "Kieran." "Right, Kieran, let me just get the keys." Kieran couldn't have chosen a better subject to keep Mr. Gregson occupied. He loved his old Jaguar E-Type and could talk about it for hours. Kieran gave a quick thumbs up to Ben, who was hiding behind a bush, and as Mr. Gregson came back out of the house, Ben slipped into the back garden. The garden was an overgrown jungle. For a man that spent so much time polishing his car, Ben had expected something, well, more tidy. Ben peered around the edge of the house, then walked past the French windows towards the back door. He was almost past the large windows when something inside caught his attention. Ben pressed his hands to the glass and peered in. The living room was sparsely decorated, magnolia walls, bare floorboards, a small table littered with tools, and a few chairs. Then away from all this little huddle of furniture was a single occupied chair, and in it, tied and gagged, sat Mrs. Gillespie. Ben stared at the old woman in disbelief. Mrs. Gillespie had her nightclothes on. Her hair was in rollers. She had lost a slipper and her dressing gown was covered in dirt and torn. Ben looked harder into the room. He could make out her face. Her eyes were large and startled. The hairs on the back of Ben's neck shot up. She was trying to warn him. Ben spun around just in time to see a man looming towards him. He lunged under the man's arm and made for the gate, but the man was quick. He grabbed Ben from behind, pinning down his arms and lifting him into the air. Ben kicked his heels into the man's shins and shouted, "Kieran! Kieran! Help!" The man moved one hand over Ben's mouth. Ben sunk his teeth into his hand. The man let out a subdued cry and continued to heave Ben into the house, depositing him onto the kitchen floor. As he turned to lock the door, Ben reached inside his pocket, felt for Kieran's phone and speed-dialed Nan. Ben imagined the rings in his head. He thought it would ring at least 3 times before Nan picked up. "Who are you?" Ben shouted. "What do you want with me? Why are you in Mr. Gregson's house?" Before Ben could say another thing, the man grabbed him by the arm, clamped his hand over his mouth again, and wheeled him into the lounge. There he saw Mrs. Gillespie strapped to the chair. He also saw Mr. Gregson struggling in the corner, and when he moved to help the man tie Ben to a chair, Ben saw Kieran, hands tied and laying on the floor. He was unconscious and had a large cut on the top of his head, from which blood was flowing freely down his face. The man relinquished his grip on Ben. "Help! Help!" he shouted, before a big piece of silver gaffer tape silenced him. "I hate kids," the man said, massaging his hand. Ben could see just how big the man was now. He was twice as wide as Mr. Gregson and a little taller, with a face that reminded Ben of a bulldog. Where was Nan? Ben hoped she would realise what was going on. Ben needn't have worried. After all, Nan had special training, which allowed her to handle situations just like this one. Oh my goodness, this is getting even more exciting. So come back tomorrow when we will read the next chapter of Ninja Nan and Sidekick Grandad by Annaliese Matheron, and hopefully we will find out what's going on. So I'll see you there. Bye-bye.